What's your favorite way to travel? My favorite mode of transportation normally involves only two wheels. From the time I graduated from a tricycle to a bicycle nearly 70 years ago, I have never lost the interest and thrill of riding on two wheels. The freedom and frontiers opened with biking around the neighborhood, school district, and finally the entire city was a rush that has lasted a lifetime. I remember the 20-inch bike I received at age 6, and by the time I started Morning View Elementary, I begged and begged for permission to ride the couple of miles from Bradley Drive to the school. With permission granted, the world began to shrink exponentially. Various bikes followed through the years, and a number of creative combinations of bike parts made several bikes of dubious authentic pedigree. When the three-speed transmission was incorporated on an English bike, negotiating the hills around town became 100 times easier. In late junior high years, my good friend Donald Holt introduced me to the joys of powered biking. His mighty Cushman scooter with its jackrabbit acceleration, well, maybe not as rapid as that, was truly a life changer. These 60 years later, I often think of Don and those first rides and the rush of being pushed along the road with assisted power with the wind blowing in my face. No helmet or other safety gear was used, but what a thrill. Around 1973, while working in Florida, I purchased a Honda 350, which I rode to work and around Okaloosa County for over a year. Once I braved the 140 miles from Crestview to Montgomery, Dad was definitely not a fan of motorcycles, but in his extensive wisdom, he did not lower the boom on his wayward bike riding son. He arrived home from work with the Honda parked outside in the drive. His only understated rage was, "I thought you had better sense than that." After about a year of riding, I concluded that I had enjoyed the few hundred miles I had ridden accident and injury free, and I decided to sell the bike. I continued to enjoy bicycling with the thrill of two-wheeling. Fast forward about 25 years. I would often have dreams about that old Honda, dreaming that I would go into the garage and there was the bike in the corner, maybe covered with a tarp or a coat of dust. That was one of my favorite dreams. At age 55, I determined that since I was still in good health and reasonable physical fitness, that I wanted to ride again. I purchased another Honda, this time a 750cc Shadow. I was back in business. Every 2 years thereafter, I would trade motorcycles for various reasons, often to increase power and comfort. The Shadow was followed by a Honda VTX 1300, a Silverwing scooter, and a Goldwing 1800, a Kemco scooter, another 1300, another Goldwing, and finally the unusual automatic cruiser, a Honda DN01, which I have enjoyed for nearly 7 years at this writing. Plenty of pep, comfort, economy, and style for a rider my age, and still the same thrill of enjoyment that I experienced 60 plus years ago. I have taken many rides to Montgomery, Atlanta, Nashville, Huntsville, and ports of call within a 300-mile range. Since I'm the only one in the family that enjoys motorcycling, the frequency of trips has diminished in the last couple of years. I ride around, mostly in the city, running errands, shopping, and general transportation. When there is a choice, I prefer the bike 5-1. We often ride our bicycles on the river park trails. Most often we will park at the Chickamauga Dam and ride the 11.5 miles along the beautiful Tennessee River through the city and to the end of Broad Street where the main trail currently ends. A 23-mile round trip is a fairly strenuous outing for one in his 70s. When I worked at WDYN Radio, I would pedal the 13 miles to the station in Rossville several times per week. Rather than shrinking to a skinny, trim guy, I compensated at mealtime and maintained my bulk to the chagrin of my physicians. There has been only one very minor sliding accident on a motorized bike for me. I've had 4 bicycle crashes in the past 20 years and one involving a hit and run automobile. Following that crash, I have confined my bicycling to restricted bike paths. I plan to continue riding one or more of the two-wheelers as long as I feel reasonably safe doing so. Riding has truly been a thrill of a lifetime. My other mode of transportation that I still dream about was my 1959 Karmann Ghia. It had a manual transmission and no air conditioning, but it was a smooth driving little sports car. My good buddy, Carl Ashby, did expert car repair and restoration. He prepared the Ghia for me and delivered it in virtually mint condition with not an ounce of Bondo body filler from bumper to bumper. The like new upholstery, flashy hubcaps, and perfect solid black paint job made it a real eye catcher. For some reason, the engine began to excessively wear points, which caused the car to run poorly. I'm sure someone could have repaired the problem, but in my normal panic mode, I traded the car rather than paying for the repair. I have regretted that decision many, many times. I'm not sure if it would still be as easy to get in and out of that particular model of car, but I have often thought about finding another one in which to cruise around town. On February 8th, 2024, my 75th birthday, I rode my Honda DN01 to Atlanta to hear Anton Armstrong's St. Olaf Choir. About halfway back, around midnight, my mental switch clicked and said, "That's enough two-wheeling. Time to hang it up." The next day, I listed my bike for sale, and over the next week, Marketplace noted over 800 interested viewers of my ad. One very nice lawyer from Chicago sent a handsome down payment and requested for me to have the bike completely serviced and ready for pickup when weather approved. In mid-April, Eduardo C. arrived in Chattanooga to retrieve his prize. It was the end of an era.